Hey guys, Paulo Synthmania. So tonight it's gonna be kind of like a talk video because I just got back from work. I had a long work day today. I had to stay late, and it's about 11 p.m. now. So I don't have the time to do a full video like I would usually do with syncing the tracks to the DAW and all that stuff. But to avoid boring you to death, we're gonna spray this pepper this video up with some sounds from synths, so I can keep you watching maybe. So let's start with a nice sound on the D-50. All right, so the idea for tonight's video comes from a comment that I've read on today on a video that I've done a couple days ago about the shoegaze, the My Bloody Valentine type of sound of the late 80s, early 90s, and that comment was very true. So the comment said basically, back in the day, nobody called those types of bands shoegaze or dream pop. Or the term that they used was indie, short for independent music. And that triggered a memory of me going to these record stores in the 80s. And so that's what I wanted to talk about a little bit tonight. Because I get viewers from all kinds of ages on my channel, from 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. And perhaps the people who are a little bit younger, the 20s, the 30s, they never experienced that. So I figure I'll talk about how we listen to music in the 80s. Let's do another D-50 sound. So, certain types of music that are called certain ways today were not called like that back years ago. And typically music critics, they can't play. You know, they can't even play triangle, ding ding, they can't play. So I'd rather listen to musicians criticizing and talking about music than critics, or at least the critics that can't play. Because when you play an instrument for many, many years, you actually become understanding, analyzing how those songs are made. You understand it fully. And so I mean, nothing wrong with music critics who can't play, but if I had my choice, I would listen to musicians analyzing music and giving opinions about it. So that said, how did you listen to music in the days prior to the internet? Imagine that, no internet. It was all like print-based, and they had this thing called fanzines or music magazines. I was very much into music since I was a child, so by the time I was a teenager, I was reading trade magazines and music magazines. And one that I grew up in Italy. I was born and raised there and moved to the States in '96 when I was 26. And I brought only one music magazine from Italy, and it's this guy here called Velvet Gallery. And it's in Italian, but it's like an omnibus version of a music magazine that I used to read at the time in the late 80s, early 90s. It was called Velvet. And this has their most famous songs. Il nostro rock in 333 album. It means our rock in 333 albums. And I would take these and pretty much buy all those records because there was one guy, one music critic that I like. He must have been a musician. And you know that episode of Seinfeld where Elaine, I think it was Elaine, goes to the video store, and there was a guy who she liked a lot because he recommended all the good movies that she liked. And then it turns out he was like a 14-year-old or something, and she loved him. Anyway, so kind of like that. I had that critic, I don't even remember who he was, but he was one of the writers for Velvet. And so let's take a look at Velvet. But first, another D-50 sound. So here's a copy of Velvet, and I bought this. This is a supplement to number 21 of Velvet, June 1990 of the monthly Velvet. Oh, 5,000 lira it cost. So quite expensive. I mean, I don't remember how much records exactly cost. Maybe like 20,000 lira back then. But anyway, so, and again, sorry, this is in Italian, but I'll translate. So this is the way it worked. You used to buy these types of music magazines, and basically listen to the music critics who said you should listen to this records or that record. And this actually was a good publication. And so you got 33 records from the 50s, and you got classics such as Ray Charles, Patsy Cline, The Coasters, so much fun, Eddie Cochran, Bo Diddley, Fats Domino, and so forth. Buddy Holly, of course, Bill Haley and the Comets, Jerry Lee Lewis, great pianist, and so yeah, very cool. Elvis Presley, of course, his Sun Sessions. Oh, great record, Link Ray and the Raymen, fantastic. So, let's go through these a little bit of records, and then I'll tell you how you bought the records back in the when I was a teenager. And really up until, through the 90s, they still had record stores. But anyway, so the 60s, Dylan on the cover here, and the band, the Byrds, the Beatles, one of my favorites, the Doors, Jefferson Airplane, classic, Jimi Hendrix, Led Zeppelin, of course, 69. Great record, Pink Floyd, The Piper at the Gates of Dawn, fantastic record, so beautiful. Oh, Van Morrison, Rolling Stones. One of my favorite bands, the Stooges, fantastic band, so cool. Great album, and of course, everybody's influenced the Velvet Underground. The Who, never been too much of a fan of The Who myself, but, cool band. More Beatles, James Brown, Buffalo Springfield, the Blues Project, the Beach Boys. Bunch of people here. Creedence Clearwater Revival, Spencer Davis Group. Oh, the Deviants Tooth. I remember buying this records because of this this magazine. I remember, never heard about Deviants Tooth, but I liked the title. I remember this very well. It was 30 years ago plus. And I liked the title, Tooth. So I ended up buying the records. I still have the record somewhere. Jimi Hendrix, really cool stuff. The Fugs, yeah, fantastic. So yeah, I eventually bought all these records. Either okay, well, beautiful progressive record. Like if you're a keyboard player, you go through that progressive phase, I'm sure, where you listen to Emerson, Lake and Palmer, Yes, and of course King Crimson. Love Forever Changes, fantastic record. I remember buying this again and loved listening to this record a lot. Let's see, the Maytals do the reggae, fantastic. MC5, Kick Out. I remember buying all these records. I remember buying the MC5 because of this magazine. Nico, The Pretty Things, Smokey Robinson and the Miracles, Rolling Stones again. The Scatolites, fantastic reggae ska band. I actually remember seeing them in concert when I was still there. They were great. Simon Garfunkel, of course, Sam and Dave. Let's see what else. Oh, fantastic album here, the Sonics. Here are the Sonics, another band that I discovered through Velvet, and loved that album a lot. Steppenwolf, 13th Floor Elevators. Also, I got this album because of this. You can tell I kind of was following what this, the publications were telling me to do. When you're 18 years old. Velvet's Underground, another, a lot of Neil Young. Oh yeah, I remember buying this one too, Neil Young, and there was Cinnamon Girl on that? No, it was another song that I really liked. I don't remember. Anyway, Frank Zappa. All right, let's do another D-50 patch, and then we'll talk about the 70s. So back then, vinyl was still used a lot through the 80s. I remember I bought the first CD player. It's gotta be like the late 80s. Actually, my sister bought it, and I kind of stole it from her. Thank you, Eleonora. And I actually used it to sample samples in the Roland W30. I remember my sister bought a portable Sony CD player, and I took it from her. I basically borrowed it, and I kept it in full mode on top of the Roland W30 that I had in 1990, and used it to sample the first sample CDs that were coming out of the era. So through the 80s, everybody was still buying records. It's only towards the late 80s, early 90s that people started buying CDs, because the CDs were very expensive compared to the vinyl records. That's why. So you either bought cassettes or vinyl. And if you really were an audiophile, I guess, you would buy the CDs. But anyway, this is not here nor there. Let's talk about how to buy the records. So I have such an eclectic taste. So I come from a small town in Italy. And so when I was there as a teenager during the heyday of Italo disco, again, another term invented by critics that nobody called Italo disco. I said that several times in my videos. It was called musica da discoteca, or disco music, or dance music. And so I went through so in the small town you had the small record store, which really was the guy who sold the washing machines or the TVs. So you went down, I remember going down, like my grandmother used to give me some money, or my aunts, and I would buy these Italo disco records, like a Mixage. I remember there was this compilation called Mixage that I used to buy religiously because it had all the cool songs from Memory Records, Il Biscotto, Zix, all those Italian. So in my little town, I had a very straight experience. I was hanging out with kids who liked the pop music of the era, which was for Italy the Italian synth pop, Italo disco. I liked a lot of synth pop, of course, Depeche Mode, but when I went to high school, I went to a high school in the nearby town, which was a little bit more sophisticated, I guess, as opposed to my town, which was really a fisherman town. And I started hanging out with kids who were into music a lot, and they were into indie music or alternative music or dark music. Back then in the 80s, growing up as a kid, I was born in 69, so say 84, I was 15, right? And it was really like those movies with Molly Ringwald, that we used to watch. It was really like that. So in high school, you had the cliques with the nerds and the jocks and they call it dark music. So I was in the group with the dark guys, the goths, but I never really dressed too much like them. But I listened to that music, so I started listening to Bauhaus and Joy Division, are one of my favorite bands. I still to this day, The Cure, all those types of bands. Then when I went to college in Rome for 4 years, I started listening to all these types. I just got more and more into music, and I was already buying magazines left and right and listening to the radio programs and TVs. And I started buying all these independent records or indie records. And I used to go to this record store in Rome called Disfunzioni Musicali, musical dysfunctions. And I don't know if it's still around, probably not. You're talking about 30 years ago. But it was great. And the experience that you had from those types of stores, it's really, if you ever seen the movie, which I'm sure you have if you play synthesizers modular, The Clockwork Orange, it was really like that. That was the late 60s, I guess, 1968, 67 maybe. So you had those music stores, record stores with lots of layers of records, and some of them you could actually put the headphones on and listen, check out the records before you bought it, which was great. Not all of them had it though. And so yeah, that scene where Alex takes those two girls home at the record store, it was kind of like that. Only never happened to me. And so I was listening to these records. So it was just great because you entered the record store. There was actual physical record. Let me grab a record. Never on Sunday by the Ramsey Lewis Trio. Fantastic pianist. Jazz. What's this? Sugar Hill Rapper's Delight. Fantastic. Dance Time featuring the Art Mooney Big Band. Yeah, those. So like that, you started. You were touching the records, you were smelling the records, you were reading the liner notes, yeah. And it was a total different experience than today, having to listen to MP3s, or I don't even know what kids listen to today. I guess I could ask my kids, I'm sure they listen to Spotify or Apple Music, Amazon Music. It's all online based, which is fine, it's perfect for today. We're in 2019. But it was just great to browse through them. I cannot think of the term for scaffali in English. Scaffolding? The bin. bins. There were lots of bins with records inside, and you used to browse. And in this Disfunzioni Musicali, there was a section called Indie. So you selected the records that you liked and test them out, and eventually bought them. And so yeah, I used to go there, and it's weird because I was, again, I like music. I love music. It's the reason of it's the big passion of my life. And I like all types of music. So I was going to raves. I was listening to techno music in the early 90s, making techno, into all kinds of electronic music. But I was also into rock and alternative bands. So I think it's good to not limit your music taste to just one genre. It's like some people do that, and I never understood why. You know, some people, oh, I only listen to jazz, or I only listen to reggae, I only listen to R&B. I don't know. Why limit yourself? Listen to everything. You got one life. You gotta learn about music. You want to experience music. You want to like music, feel it, enjoy it. Just listen to everything, and see which music you like. All right. So let's take a look at the 70s music in Velvet gallery. All right, here we are with music of the 70s. Let's see what's inside. David Bowie, here is fantastic record. I already had these. I mean, these are all like must-have that you know, somebody would already have. But you know, of course, they tell you. This one I did find out from Velvet, I think. I'm not sure, but awesome, awesome, awesome record. Tago Mago. Must have, fantastic if you like German. They used to call it krautrock again, but you know, it just if you like spacey music of that era, is phenomenal. And The Clash, London Calling. Let's see what else. Raikuda. Yeah, I remember buying this one also. Creedence Clearwater Revival, Crosby, Still, Nash and Young, Devo, of course Bob Marley, hugely famous in the 70s and early 80s, Van Morrison, Tom Petty, Rolling Stones, Sex Pistols, Nevermind the Bollocks, of course, Patti Smith, Bruce Springsteen. This one, great record, Suicide. Again, if you like electronic music, you've got to check out this record because it's seminal, really techno, very influential band for what came after with the, you know, already with the Kraftwerk, of course, but it's an American spin, some mix between rockabilly and electronic music done in a really unique way. Just great band. Television, Tom Waits, this great fantastic record, Television, Marquee Moon. Oh, this was a favorite of mine when I was a kid. I already had this one, but you know, you go through the Pink Floyd era when you're a teenager, of course you do, and Pink Floyd, you discover Syd Barrett and his story, and you buy that record. This is, remember that, this the one that had the Baby Lemonade and Pink Elephant or something? I love that record. I need to check it out again. I haven't listened to this one in a long time. Black Sabbath, Paranoid, of course. Oh, this one I used to like. I went through like a heavy metal, hard rock phase when I was a teenager. Again, because I love all kinds of music, and I really like this one, the Blue Oyster Cult. I bought a couple of their records. I remember David Bowie, Buzzcocks, Jimmy Cliff, a great classic reggae album. What else is here? Elvis Costello. The Cure, yeah, was also a very classic record. Three Imaginary Boys. This was the early phase of The Cure when they were not super well known yet, and this is a fantastic record. Of course, Miles Davis. I don't know why they would put Miles Davis in a rock compendium, but he's there, and it is a good album. Mano Dibango. See, Dire Straits, The Doors again. Free, Eagles, Grateful Dead. Here we come to one of my favorite bands of all times, Joy Division, Unknown Pleasures. When I was in that phase, I bought all the Joy Division records, including the EPs, and I still have them. Probably they're worth some money now. I don't know. Yeah, fantastic. Fantastic record, Unknown Pleasure, and then Closer. Closer is my favorite record, but Unknown Pleasure is fantastic too. And I already knew about these guys. I already had the album, but Kraftwerk, Autobahn, and I bought all the Kraftwerk records, as you do if you're a keyboard player. Lynyrd Skynyrd, Joni Mitchell, a bunch of other people here. Police. Ramones, of course, Lou Reed Berlin, great record, and another fantastic bands that I used to listen to religiously in the 80s with all my friends, Susie Sue and the Banshees. Actually, I remember when I was 14 or so, like I would pronounce it like the Apache, like the Indian tribe. Sioux, and somebody pointed out to me, somebody friend of the brother of one of my friends who already knew English much better than I did, told me it was Susie, not Siouxsie. Anyway, it's Susie Sue. She goes by, they just spelled artistically. Soft Machine, great bands, ska, Specials. I went through that phase, of course, too. Steel Pulse, Steely Dan, again the Stooges. People like Funhouse, but I really prefer, it's a great record, but I like their first record a lot better than Funhouse. I don't know why. I think I like the guitar player in the first record better. I forget his name. Ron Ashton. And Talking Heads, T-Rex, Ultravox again, of course. I went through the Ultravox phase, got all the Ultravox records. I still have all these records in Italy. Neil Young. And then we go to the 80s. All right, here we are in the 80s section. Springsteen on the front cover here. Laurie Anderson, Nick Cave, fantastic record. And what's this? John Cale, The Clash again. Let's see. Dream Syndicate. Oh, great record. Husker Du. This band was really kicking, and you know, one of the bands that started the whole revival of you know, garage rock, or very hard driven music, post-punk they called it, I think. And oh, this is another record. See, I know the most about the 80s because you really like music when, especially when you are in your child phase, and in your teenagers and in your 20s. So here I was a teenager and soon to become 20s, and I like this record a lot. Jane's Addiction, really cool. And here, one of the records of my youth, talking about shoegaze and all that type of stuff. This was a really huge record for that type of genre. Jesus and Mary Chain, Psycho Candy. I remember, like if it were today, going to the store and buying Psycho Candy because everybody was talking about it, and you start seeing the videos, and it was just one of those records that you remember. And then Linton Kwesi Johnson, and this is one of my favorite records from Joy Division, Closer. It made the list. Public Enemy, Yo Bum Rush the Show. Let's see what else is here. R.E.M., Stan Ridgway, Talking Heads, U2, the Joshua 3. This was 1987. I remember very well when that came because I was working at a hotel when that song came out. It was huge. It was being played all over the radio. It was the one with the 4 chords, With or Without You. It was in that record, I think. All right, Bad Brains, Axe, really cool band as well. Beastie Boys. And let's see who else. This was a great record. Tracy Chapman, like acoustic folk song that is famous. The Cars. What was her song? Here in a car. Na, 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 na. I cannot remember the title. Something Cars. Fast Cars? But check it out if you don't know it. This is from my era, but she was amazing. Christian Death, another band that I used to listen to religiously. A lot of, you know, the Swans, all those types of bands. Clock DVA, I also went through the industrial phase, was listening to all those types of bands. Fun record, The Cramps, another classic, like fuzz psychedelic band that I really loved. The Cure, the Kennedys, the Lasso. Yeah, I remember again, like if it were yesterday, going to the store and buying the De La Soul 3 Feet High and Rising record, the one with the yellow cover. I still remember like today, incredible. And I remember the details. And yeah, I loved that album a lot. There was a song where like 3 is the magic number, and they had all kinds of samples. That was the years where people didn't really clear samples, and they, you know, of course, they use all kinds of samples from other people's records. There was the famous James Brown funky drummer that everybody used in their records. Die Pretty, Free Dirt. Die Pretty was a phenomenal Australian band that I saw in concert a couple times. They came to, believe it or not, they came to my little town. And we went to see them live. It was great. Great memories. Yeah, around 86 they came, and we went to see them, I remember. Let's see. Brian Eno, of course, you know, if you're a keyboard player, you gotta know Brian Eno. Donald Fagen, Peter Gabriel, Green or Red, good band too. This band, Guns N' Roses, they were huge in 1987. This album was being played all over, all the time. So, See what else? Robin Hitchcock, really cool. Chris Isaac, he came out with a really beautiful song, which was, I forget, man, this has been a long time. What was the name of his song? I'll put the title on the top when I look it up. Joe Jackson, another cool cat. Let's see. What else here? Ricky Lee Jones, Salif Keita, LL Cool J. Also, this album, Radio, was very popular. First, like melodic rap, I guess. Los Lobos, they had a really cool song. Metallica, Meat Puppets. Awesome. Yason Dur, Lee Scratch Perry. Oh, another band that we and my friends we used to listen to a lot was the Pixies. Love the Pixies. Doolittle was a great album. We had pretty much I had all the albums by the Pixies. I think also on cassette I had them. Yeah, just phenomenal productions, a phenomenal song, great songwriting. The Pogues, these guys were also famous back then. Prince, Purple Rain, Lou Reed, Michelle Schacht. Here, another album that I used to love. Sisters of Mercy. They had the drum machine instead of the drummer, you know. So I've always gravitated towards electronic components, and I believe they had DMX, the Oberheim DMX. I might be wrong, but there was a song called Marianne that I just loved that style. I still do. The Smiths, of course, they were huge in the 80s. Social Distortion, Soundgarden, another band that we used to listen to a lot. Really hard-driven rock. Spaceman 3. Spaceman 3, fantastic band. And also, we bought the record when it came out. Playing with Fire, exactly. I was 20. So I bought this record when it came out and played it a lot. It was just incredible energy. Again, the type of, hard-driven revival rock that happened at the end of the 80s or early 90s. Mortal Coil, Tuxedo Moon, great record as well. U2, Suzanne Vega. Yeah, she had a really good song too. Tom Verlaine. This one is a cool record right here, The Violent Femmes. I remember the bass, because I played bass at the time, and their bass player had an acoustic bass, so like it was not an upright, but he was a bass with a cavity with I forget the term of. I'm not a guitarist, I'm sorry, but you get what I was saying. And they had so many good songs. Virgin Prunes, excellent band. Neil Young again. These guys also very cool. The Waterboys, like a revival folk type of song. Bunny Wailer, reggae, and XTC, classic. And I think that's it. And then we went to the 90s, and you had music. Speaking of which, here is an ad for Disfunzioni Musicali, which was that record store in Rome where I used to go all the time to get all my records. In Via degli Etruschi 4. So I want to check it out. I want to see if it's still around. I doubt it, because now who buys records anymore? Nobody. So, all right, guys, it's late. I got to go to bed because I got to go to work tomorrow. So I hope you enjoyed this sort of trip down memory lane. And I think it's cool to tell stories from I was a kid, and just to show and let other people know how it was, because back then there was no internet, no nothing, and it was so hard to get information about anything, especially synthesizers, musical instruments, and so forth. And now we have this incredible medium of the internet allows a random guy like me in my basement to come out and share my stories with you, with the world, really. And It's a fantastic thing. It's wonderful. So, as always, thank you so much for watching, guys. Please share, like, and subscribe. I'll see you at the next video. Bye.